Good day and welcome to another edition of One-on-One with Swope Health. I am your host, Eric Wesson. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a great show planned for you. Our guest today is the newly elected 3rd District at Large City Councilwoman, Melissa Patterson Hazley. Councilwoman Hazley, thanks so much for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So tell us about you. Where were you born and raised?
Oh, Kansas City, Missouri. I went to Kansas City Public Schools.
What school did you go to?
I came out of Southwest.
Okay.
And then went to UMKC for undergrad. And then later on I got a Ph.D. from University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
Okay. Southwest Indian.
Yep, that's right.
We in the same. I graduated
I didn't
from
know
Southwest.
that. Yeah.
When I graduated from Southwest, there were probably about 100 of us.
Mm-hmm. When I graduated, it was all of us.
Exactly. We got shipped there, or bused there, I should say, right when DSEG was going on, and they sent us there, and it was an experience, but I don't regret one moment of it. So where'd you go to church?
I went to Grace Christian Fellowship, which was on Paseo, non-denominational church. It started on Indiana, like 39th, on one of the storefronts. Yeah, and then we eventually built a church.
Okay. Married?
Yeah, married. A lot of years to Jason Hazley.
A lot of years.
Yeah, lost count. We have one daughter, Addison. She's 10. She's going to be going to school. Actually, she's starting 6th grade at Lincoln Middle.
Oh, really?
So we're really excited about that.
Okay. So what got you into politics from education? Because your background is in education, right?
Yeah.
How did you make that switch?
Well, actually, the switch was the other way. So my undergrad is in American Studies and Political Science.
Okay.
And so my senior thesis was a campaign plan for 3rd District at Large. I was the candidate. So I've kind of been interested in a long time in politics, and wrote a campaign and did all that. But I thought it was important to get a job, learn stuff, have life experience, buy a house, so that I could relate, if I was going to ever be in an elected position. And so that's why I didn't run right away. I went into my career, which ended up being educational psychology.
So is it a good decision, or is it too early to tell about getting into politics?
It's a great decision. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's fun. It's high energy, or at least I'm high energy. It's a lot to learn. I've served on several boards and commissions over the years. And so you think you know a lot about City Hall and how it works. And then when you're, actually trying to accomplish things like I am, you find out it's a little bit more complicated than on the outside looking in. And so that's been instructive because, we're pretty critical of elected officials. We watch what they do, we watch how they move, and we have lots of opinions. But it turns out that it is a hard job. And so that's what I've been doing these last couple of weeks. It feels like, 6 months, but I've just been trying to learn and get up to speed and how to pull different levers, where are the pressure points. That's what I've been spending my time doing.
So when you say it's a lot different, give us an example.
Well, the city of Kansas City is what, a $2 billion organization. And so you would think that I can go and find, $1 million to clean up vacant lots, right? But it's more complicated than that. It's sort of a game of where's Waldo? What's the appropriate fund? What is the fund restricted? The fund's like an account. Is the account restricted? Is it already appropriated 5 years out? Have they projected projects? And so trying to navigate that, but also keeping in mind the aspirations that I know my colleagues have, and not trying to, jump too far ahead of what other people are already working on and already trying to do. So trying to be, collaborative in that way, but also trying to get stuff done that I said I would get done. And so that whole process is a little bit more complicated than just saying, hey, I'm going to clean up vacant lots in the 3rd district. It's more to it than that. And it's probably over a dozen people that need to be involved in that conversation just inside City Hall. That's not to mention the community people and, everybody else that you have to work with to actually do it. It ends up being a pretty large group of people that you have to pull together to make that happen.
Just for $1 million. Don't they have like an emergency fund that they can use? And that's just an example, not that that's what you're trying to do.
Right. That's just an example.
Have an emergency fund for some funding that's not appropriated. I guess that's the best word for it.
Yeah, there's lots that is not appropriated. Mm-hmm. But again, take into account that the city has a business plan, and it has a strategic plan, and it has projects that maybe are in the pipeline because, for example, the air conditioner is out at Gregg Center, I understand. Mm-hmm. And so, that's going to, so that should theoretically jump the line on some other stuff that might be planned because that is an emergency. But you still have to figure out where are you going to pay for that from. You don't necessarily plan for the air conditioner to go out. You should expect that you're going to have those kind of problems, but it probably wasn't written on your budget, that it's going to go out. That's an example of, okay, what do we need to move around and reprioritize because we obviously have to fix the air conditioner at the Gregg Center.
Right. It's like a sauna in there.
Yeah. Yes.
I've been in there. So tell me, what do you feel the number one priority is in the 3rd district?
That's a hard question because the 3rd district has been disinvested in for so long. There's every kind of thing that needs to be addressed in the 3rd district. So it's hard to kind of, put them in order. Me personally, I want to spend a considerable amount of time dealing with vacant lots. I know that my 3rd district colleague is also really interested in that, and so that's great. There's over 3,000 of them in the 3rd district, so any plans that we have for vacant lots that might be in Land Bank or Homestead Authority is going to have a tremendous impact on the 3rd district. So it'll be important for us to stay involved in that conversation and make sure that they're being remediated and rebuilt on in a way that creates a healthy community, which is what we want, right? We want to be able to take care of our neighbors that need help, but we also want to have our neighbors shop at the grocery store, keep the grocery store open. You need shoppers for that.
Right.
You need people that can afford to have dinner at soiree, or else it's not going to stay open. So you need a variety of people in the community, like any healthy community. And so paying attention to how you redevelop where, try to be granular, for example. What can one neighborhood handle in terms of rent diversity? You got to get really down in the weeds to me to find out what types of development can this neighborhood handle that is enough for it to be diverse and functioning, but not too much to where, people get priced out. That's kind of the dance that you're in right now.
So when you talk about the housing situation and the vacant lots, is there a city plan for that? Because land bank, I hear a lot of people talk about land bank. It's difficult to get properties out, and you got to jump through all these hoops and rings and do all these things. So is there a better way to streamline it so that those vacant lots become available to become a development area?
Yeah, and I think that I want to be clear that I'm not bringing up the vacant lots and it's like some great new idea.
Right.
They've actually been discussing it among council members and the city staff. They've been discussing it for at least 2 or 3 years. And so trying to figure out what is that process? What's the best way to do it? Do you sell land bank properties in bulk? Do you clean them up first and then sell them? Do you sell them to individuals? How do you monitor, if you do sell them, that the buyer does what they said they were going to do? Are folks buying land bank lots just because they don't want a neighbor? So all of those are questions. And I would say that it's exciting because it's a bit of a blank canvas, and so you can create what that process looks like and try to think of as many things that could go wrong as possible while you're building a plan. But I would say the plan is in process as we speak.
Okay. You know, because I think during the James administration, I think the city manager, Troy Schulte, they came up with a dollar home plan, and the people had to get the houses, and they had 18 months or a year or something like that to renovate the properties and bring it up to where it was livable, and they had to live in it for a year before they could sell it. But that project kind of faded away because people didn't have the money to do the renovations.
Oh yeah, it's more than a notion. I mean, properties end up in land bank because they are a problem.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, well, yeah.
they're not great properties, or else they would be sold. So yeah, that dollar home program probably should have came with some subsidies or something to help people actually do it, because it's one thing to walk through the house and then start, taking floors up and noticing, oh, there's a subfloor problem or whatever, big ticket item that you couldn't see just by looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good old college try, but it didn't turn out to be good. So.
I had a friend of mine that bought one of the properties, and he had seen it from pictures. He hadn't actually seen the property. And then after he got it and he went over and looked at it, the front of the house was there, but the back of the house was gone.
Oh, my God.
It was gone. It was nothing there. It just had a frame of the front door and some other things. And so he was like, when he got through with that, he literally had to build a house all over again.
Yeah.
And that was nowhere in his budget, but he was telling me about that. And he was like, man, when you buy them properties, take your time, go look at them. Don't look at pictures or Google them and say, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like, because that's what he did. What would you see as your number 2 priority?
My number 2 priority is actually CCD.
Okay.
So, as you know, you
Central Cities
economic development. Yeah. Yep. As you know, you followed it over the years. We've had some good times and some bad times. As it relates to CCD, it's been quite the ride. One thing that never or has not happened yet is CCD has not been properly staffed. Mm-hmm. And so,
is that by design?
You know what? I've been thinking about that. I thought it was by design at first. And so, you have this project originate, from the community, by petition initiative, rather than a vote of the council to put it on the ballot, right?
Right.
And so maybe that creates some initial friction just off top. Mm-hmm. And so, you could approach it as though I'm going to do just enough, but not a lot, because they're not going to be able to figure this out,
right.
And it's going to tank. And then, whatever. The rest will be history, and it'll be something that was tried and failed.
Right.
And so I suspected that was the attitude back in the day. Mm-hmm. But in 2023, I have a new word for it. I think it's neglect. Mm. I think it's like the redheaded stepchild that you forgot to feed dinner. It deserves to have, and I've been really trying to figure out how to articulate this without offending people, because I don't mean to be rude about it, but just kind of watching, how staffing decisions are made and what the support process looks like. Mm-hmm. It could be better for the potential that CCD has. It should be staffed by people that are at the top of their game in economic development, right? They should really know this, and be able to do it, be able to bring some creativity. The more you know your industry, the more creative you can be, right? Mm-hmm. You're not so bound by the rules. Of course, you're never going to break the law, but you're not so bound by the rules. You can be creative. But to me, because I studied creativity a little bit as an educational psychologist, you can be more creative the more you know. You understand, how to finesse. And so CCD just frankly has never been staffed at that level. And honestly, I don't get it, I've been playing around with this analogy of, do not hire me to manage the auto mechanic store.
Right.
You know, I've had a car since I was 16, or I've driven somebody's car since I was 16. I don't even know how to put in the windshield washer fluid. I see the picture, but don't add, you know, I tell somebody else, hey, top me off, you know, my fluid is getting low. And so, you know, you have to me, it's like, as smart as I am, I'm not smart enough to manage the auto mechanics. Like, I don't know that industry.
Right.
You know, I don't belong there. There's other things that I can do, but not that. And so that I would say that my number 2 priority is finally standing the staff up. Like, what's the problem? Stand an office up, do it right, make a physical location somewhere over here on the east side where people can actually walk in the door and have a conversation with somebody. You know, I would say that's my number 2.
And you know, I can say this because I don't have to work with them, but that's a common theme throughout City Hall, is having people that aren't qualified for positions in positions. And you know, from the outside looking in, it's like a lot of times there are people that don't know how to get to 35th and Wabash that are directors of the housing department. I could say that, you can't. Or you know, and so it looks like it's by design, and we're the ones, that people in those areas are the ones that suffer by that. And in CCED, you brought up a great point. It's a great concept on paper, but if you slow drag it through the system, then when it comes time to renew it, then people are saying, well, hey, y'all had this for 10 years and you only got one thing done, even though it's been a lot more than that done. But that's just an example. And then that turns people off, and it's like, hey, we tried, but we couldn't get it together. And the problem has been at City Hall. And it's like, it was a initiative petition instead of coming out of City Hall, and that might have been one of the hindrances that they can have.
Yeah, it got us off on the wrong foot pretty immediately, unfortunately. I mean, it didn't have to be that way. Could have just been, let's all roll our sleeves up and try to figure it out now that it's here, you know.
Right. Is there a director of it, an executive director of it now?
No.
Is that normal?
None of the other incentive boards operate without an executive director.
Okay. So this isn't normal to have it like that.
not
Are you going to
consistent.
stay on the board now that you're...
I'm off the board.
When did you get off?
Yesterday.
Get out of here. Who replaced you?
John Otto.
And what does he know?
He's unlike me, he's a lawyer who has represented developers.
Okay.
So that's more expertise than I had being on the board. So I like that. He has a great temperament. He's smart. I think he can get along with people. We had a great conversation in terms of just kind of 2.0 with some of the staffing issues, and just kind of really trying to let him have a set of fresh eyes with whoever else is going to be on the board. And I'm in a new role. So I'm in a new role, and then let's capitalize on my role, and then, you know, you all do the board thing. And make it better, you know, make the processes better, revise policies as necessary. What are you going to do with projects that are stuck in the pipeline? You know, there's a lot that board has to handle. And then I'll be involved in another capacity.
And that is Judge Otto's husband.
That is.
Okay. Yeah, I know him. I was just saying. But he's been with development for a while, with the law firm that he's at.
Yeah.
So I know him. He'll probably do well, but hopefully he can move the needle.
Yeah.
And get an executive director. That would have to come back to the city council, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. The city council obviously has to approve all of the expenditures and contracts and all of that kind of stuff. The only thing the board can do is recommend. So the board could recommend, for example, a structure, and then they would need to ask the city council to fund it. And so, but the beauty of it is, by state statute, the board can use its tax revenue to fund the administration. So they wouldn't even lose the city, and I'm saying we wouldn't even lose any money. by standing up in office, because state statute allows an administration. Even the state knew, hey, you're going to need an administration for this.
Right.
Here's how much you can spend on it. So.
Okay. So what about violent crime and crime? Is that on your radar as well?
Yes, it is. That is actually, very important as campaigning around the city, no matter where. That's a topic of discussion. From petty crimes to kind of nuisance crimes with just loitering and people just kind of outside, might end up on your property sleep like somebody was on my back patio sleep. But violent crime is especially a problem. And so as a council person, what can you actually do about that? So unfortunately, there's a couple of people somewhere getting in an argument right now, and I'm sitting here with you.
Right.
So my focus is to do, those other things. Putting more homes back into the community and creating an environment that is less stressful, where people are more hopeful because of the built environment around them. Working with different labor unions, for example, that want to recruit people from the central city to work in those very good paying jobs, create pipeline programs so that people can become firefighters or other types of professionals. And so I'm just going to be trying to focus on doing things that create an environment where it's less likely that you will be in trouble and mad. And so, and then, of course, trying to build relationships with law enforcement. I know that we are in the process of trying to open a CAN center on Linwood. And, if you've been there to Linwood and 31st Street, Linwood and Prospect. Yeah, it's interesting. Could use a little bit more public safety measures there. I think the grocery store is really taking a beating. In terms of theft and all of that. So you don't want to lose a grocery store. You got to do something.
Right.
So trying to work with the police department to have more of a presence in that area so that people, feel safe going to the grocery store, and that we can cut down on merchandise, 5-finger discount walking out the door.
Right.
So those are some public safety ideas. What is it that a council person can actually do is what I'll be focused on.
And you bring up the Sunfresh there, and people, I remember, 10 years they didn't have a grocery store there, and it needed one really bad. And then when they get one, talking to Emmett, the theft there is just outlandish. And I've seen situations like that where it would force the people to leave and abandon the store, and then people in that area don't have anything. So that is a great point on what needs to be done with those security measures there.
Yeah.
And working with the police department. I think in this stage, you probably have a better chance of that happening with the new chief of police that we have versus the previous one, because it was like the black community didn't exist during that tenure, and at least Stacey Graves is out and about moving in the community. So we'll see.
Yeah, she has a bigger presence for sure in the community. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing, what are some things that she's going to implement.
What about accountability? The police department just gets a blank check, and a very large blank check, and what do? We're at, I think the last I looked, we were like 126 homicides, or 125, and we still got another quarter of the year to go. What can the council do? And I guess nothing, because the money's already there, to address some of the concerns that you have for the community. Mental health. We have a serious mental health problem in our community, and I think that leads to a lot of homicides as well. So what can you all do as a council to back up and address those things?
Well, I mean, the police department it's a reactionary tool, right? You call the police once it's already went down, you know. And then once they step in, their job is to, you know, solve cases and make it less attractive, together with the prosecutor, make it less attractive to behave like that, because there's going to be consequences. I think with a new prosecutor coming in, there's an opportunity to have that conversation in terms of, you know, what does it look like when you arrest someone for stealing a car, for example. Now, that's not a violent crime. It could get you killed, depending on whose car you stole, but it's not a violent thing. But is there an opportunity to create a mechanism or an incentive for that person to be kind of shifted into something more positive? You know, right now we don't have a detention center. The city doesn't. Right. And so that creates, to me, another obstacle that I've heard from the community. So you have one very loud point of view that we shouldn't have a detention center at all. You know, jails are bad, they're inhumane. But then when I talk to people over at Foxtown East, they like, why ain't y'all locking these boys up? Like, why are they back next day? You know, they have a very different attitude, you know. And so it's trying to balance, you know, both of those things. But the community, I've certainly heard that people do not want to see, you know, Johnny back in 2 days after he just broke in our house, you know. So what's the appropriate way to do that? And can we create a situation where it's not completely punitive, but you're going to have somewhere to embrace Johnny so that he stops breaking in people's house. You're not just going to arrest him and let him do his time and then
take him down the street and then let him go.
Yeah. So publicly, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, we have an opportunity with a new prosecutor coming in. What does that look like? We're having the detention center conversations now.
I'm on that commission.
Yeah, so all of that is a part of it, and then very excited about the things happening over at the health department with Dr. Jones and the violence prevention that she's doing, which is really creative. You know, how do you engage people where they are? How do you let them be a part of the problem solving? And that's just getting off the ground. And so I think we have all these pieces. You know, it's just a matter of putting them together.
Yeah, I'm on that. The Alternatives to Incarceration for Violent Crime, I'm on that commission. I went to a couple of those meetings. Well, I went to one because I was out of town for the other one. And it was really interesting. And my question is, okay, so where do we begin locking people up? Because there's some people that need to be locked up. And if you've experienced drug addiction and people are smoking PCP, they're extremely aggressive, violent, so we're going to just take them down the street and then let them go. What classifies somebody to be locked up? And there's some people that need to be locked up.
Well, I'm
not a proponent for jails and prisons, but there are some people that need to be locked up.
I am not a proponent for jails and prisons either, okay? But if you sock my grandma in the eye, I want something. I want something to happen.
I want you locked up before I kill you. You know.
But in all seriousness, you know, sometimes there's a situation where, let's say, two people are. They're going at each other. Right. It could be a really good idea to just have a time out, you know, and move them away from each other, so that they can cool off, and you can do some other de-escalation measures and things of that nature. So, to me, we can reimagine what it looks like. It can be very horrible, inhumane, and nobody should be in there. Right. You know, but just having the conversation and having an honest conversation about it, I think is where you have to start. You know, because the community is saying that they want to be protected. You know, they want to be protected, and right now it's rough.
Yeah, it is. Well, Councilwoman Hazley, It's so nice to have you come back again, as you kind of feel your way around and things become a little more clear. This is what people are saying. We got Melissa and Melissa.
Yep. It's going to be great.
That's going to be fun. And then you got Melissa K, whatever she's in. So people are saying Melissa, like, okay, which one? But we know that you're going to have the best interests of the community at heart. So we look forward to your first term in City Council.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
As always, I've got the greatest viewing audience in the world. Till next week, remember, tough times don't last. Tough people do. Until next week, peace.